Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sacred Synthesis weekly conclave conversation. Tonight, I have my friend here, Jimmy Threet, who is an Army veteran and also a rad human being that is, I'd say, one of the instrumental people that I know that are helping create safe and approachable ways to use psychedelics. And um, so, we're going to have a good conversation tonight around a myriad of topics on how. Veterans are using psychedelic compounds in retreats, in their personal life, and how they can best approach them if they haven't yet, and in certain safety things and and different topics around this subject. So it's an honor to have all of you join us today. Um, and so, yeah, if let's see. So we're gonna go. I mean, I'm just gonna dive right in, Jimmy, if you don't
Yeah,
mind.
let's
And
do it.
yeah, cool. And if you're cool with it, maybe you could give like just a couple minute highlight of who you are and your maybe short background, and then your interest in the space.
Well, let's see. My psychedelic journey started when I was 14. Um, you know, had some experiences in high school, a lot of them, almost every weekend. And of course, when I was 17, I joined the military, so all that had to stop. And had a few experiences in college, had a few experiences whenever I was in Germany for a little while, especially whenever I came back from Iraq in 2004, because I was one of the first to go in. Did 7 years enlisted as a machinist, and that's whenever I went into Iraq. And then I had like a 5 year break to go to college, and then went back into to the military or back into the army. Went to OCS and became an infantry officer. So did both sides. Did enjoy things about the dark side, but also did enjoy things about being a E4 professional sham shield type guy. So that was fun.
Fuck yeah. Whoops. Yeah, cool. Thank you. I appreciate the that. So I'm just gonna dive into like sort of the topics that I brought forward today. And of course today is 9/11, so just wanted to uh, yeah, send some love to all our brothers and sisters who have been fighting since, some still, and then everyone who's back home fighting. Yeah, fighting their own demons. We honor you in this moment. I think it's so important to remember that um, we, in my view, we joined the service, and one of the main tenets is we serve for our brothers and sisters, not necessarily for the mission. You know, the mission's important, but why are we doing it? And so I think that in this time, it's so important to remember that there's no one up there. There's no hierarchy that's going to come and save us and help us. It's us helping each other, and that starts really with helping ourselves and becoming the best versions of ourselves we can be for ourselves, and that enables us to be more of service to others when they need it. So, yeah, just want to make sure we touched on that today. And so, in this important conversation around psychedelics, and those who haven't yet come home, but they're home physically, and how yeah, how they can go forward using these things to improve their life. So, you know, first thing I wanted to sort of discuss is why you think psychedelics resonate so strongly in the veteran community. Like, once they learn about it, they're like you know, we're on it. It's like, wow, this is a tool. This is something I can use and share with other people. You got any thoughts around that?
I think veterans are a good example, mainly because I feel like, veterans are one of the few people that see the worst that humanity has to offer. Guys or people, us veterans who have been deployed and we've experienced some of the worst things human beings have to offer. And, we're trained to go in, but we're not trained to come out, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like once you take the uniform off, yes, we have the VA, yes, we have some of these other entities that are out there trying to help. There's a lot of nonprofits and veterans helping each other, helping other veterans and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of work to be done on the back end. Um, anybody that's done an operation, the planning process, it's two-thirds, one-third, two-thirds planning, one-third action.
Yeah.
And you, you know, um, my journey started probably about in 2012, and um, of course, I was still in the army, so I wasn't doing psychedelics or anything of that nature. But I'd started doing meditations and things to kind of better myself. And I just kind of took a look at my life and realized this is not what I expected. This is not who I am. Like everything felt I was wearing the mask.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the mask. I was wearing the mask and I was in survival mode and I was trying to raise a family and be married at the time and navigate being in the military as an officer, which is a whole lot different.
Yeah.
And it took its toll on me. And in 2015, when I was getting out of the army, my daughter's mom kills herself. And then, a lot of things kind of changed at that point for me specifically, because to be quite honest with you, I was just waiting for my daughter to like raise my daughter to adulthood and get her through that. And I was probably going to kill myself,
Yeah.
and that's just being honest. Like I was,
Oh,
I was
please.
in so
Yeah.
much pain and things of that nature. Like every day, all I could think was like, how the fuck am I going to be doing this for the rest of my life? Like, how am I
Yeah.
supposed to be in this much pain in the rest of my life? And it's probably only going to get worse,
Sure.
And it's
You're
just
saying you're
like
saying physical pain,
physical
like
pain,
from injuries. Yeah. Hmm.
And I would go to the doctors and they would do MRIs, they do all this other stuff, and I would go through physical therapy and I would do these other things and, chiropractic, just everything I could get my hands on to try to feel better. And I lived a pretty hardcore life as a kid. Like, used to go to raves as a kid. I would get in mosh pits. I would ride BMX. I
Yeah.
did all the things, like anything that had like adrenaline attached to it, skateboarding, rollerblading,
Sure. Hmm.
cliff jumping. Just I was just one of those kids. That takes a toll on your body. Plus, I was in
Absolutely.
multiple car accidents. And
Hmm.
everything. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
so my body was busted. Like,
Sure.
yeah. And so, plus being in the military, doing combatives, martial arts and everything of that nature, plus carrying around gear, infantry shit and all that stuff.
Yep.
It just takes a toll on your body. And I was just like, there is no way I'm going to live the rest of my life feeling like this. And, like I said, the doctors told me that there's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, it's
Hmm.
muscular skeletal. And I'm like, why?
Right.
Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm physically fit. Like
Well, that's right.
like at the time I was hiking, I was doing all kinds of stuff. I was still a very active guy doing martial arts and stuff, the combatives and it was like, okay, like I get that I'm putting my body through the ringer, but like there's got to be something else to this. And I started thinking, I was like, man, my mental health sucks.
Hmm.
Like my mental health sucks. And I was like, I bet you a lot of it has to do with that. And
Right.
just,
Exactly.
and so I was like, if I work on what's going on up here, I might be able to fix what's going on out here.
Sure.
And so I started researching ayahuasca was one of the first ones that I found. And that was probably around 2012, during my deployment, I started doing some research about it. And I didn't even actually do it until 2021,
So
I
a few
think,
years
yeah,
of like
21.
digging and
Yeah, well, I was in uniform for a long time too, and
right.
so like I knew about this stuff and and all those days, most of the time when I was a teenager, it was mostly LSD, and I
Hmm.
used to sit at night. Like my nights were pretty chaotic. Like there was always parties and stuff whenever we did LSD or some sort of festival or something.
Sure.
But most of the time on the back end of it, I ended up by myself. And those times were amazing to me. Like I understood the value of that because how many times I would just sit there and think things through and just sit there and just stare
Give
at the
yourself time to
ceiling,
process. Yeah,
you
that's
know?
very, yep, that's very
Yeah.
good.
Or like I'd be on my roof smoking cigarettes and fucking, just chilling out and just processes and everything. And I
Hmm.
knew the value of that even as a kid
Yeah, I agree.
because I think I'm very confident that it changed the trajectory of my life.
You're giving yourself that space. Got it.
So and I tell people that's extremely important. I mean, psychedelics or not, just sitting in your
That's
own
right.
shit, it smells bad and it's very uncomfortable,
That's right.
you
Yeah.
know. But once you get done taking the shit, you always feel very much better,
Oh
you know.
yeah, it's so interesting that that I mean that really I think that's really what what psychedelics sort of help us do is sit still, right?
Yeah.
You take some medicine. Where you going? Like you're really not doing anything, so it's almost like it forces you to be planted,
Yeah.
and like things start moving naturally, right? Obviously, sometimes
Yep.
you get like this, ooh, things are actually moving, but it really unlocks this energy. So you've experienced had that same sort of experience yourself. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I understood the value of it. And
Mhm.
um it's, like everybody says, it quiets the ego and
Yeah,
it shuts down the default mode network in the brain and stuff like that. Basically allows the mask to fall off,
sure.
and you
Yep.
get to start seeing what's underneath that mask. Like, who are you really?
Yeah.
And it kind of puts you into tune with your real self. Some people hate their real selves, you know.
Right.
And that's very sad because like there's a lot of people that they don't want to deal with themselves because they hate themselves so
Yeah.
much, and that unfortunately is a lot of veterans.
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
but
Yeah. What I
uh,
noticed in that, and just in that topic, it's like it's like the masks as they come off, like it's almost like the next layer of identities revealed. You're like, oh shit. But
oh,
it's
this
not
guy,
something, but I think the key to remember too is like it's not that it's a permanent fixture like that inner self. It's because you keep going through the layers, I think. And
yeah,
as you get you do more and more work, obviously this is to me, this is not a one and done. It's not like you can just go sit in ayahuasca, take some mushrooms, be like, oh, I'm great. Like no, you've just peeled a layer away. And
yeah,
through that, you're like, oh,
you
I
just
sort of
broke the seal.
right. So, and some people find really quickly, they're like, oh, I have this love and it's amazing. But some people, when they reveal it, it's like, oh, I'm an asshole.
Yeah,
I really wronged people.
yeah,
And so I think this is like a good reminder to stay the course in that way, where if you
yeah,
reveal something that's like you don't like, it's just because you haven't gone deep enough. And because I think at the core of it, well, maybe some of us, there may be some of us that, at the core, there's still some suffering. But I think deep, 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 deep beyond the layers, eventually you get to a place where you're like, okay, I can accept myself. At least accept, maybe not be like, oh, I like this person, but I can accept them.
yeah. I would agree. I mean, I'm not proud of everything I've ever done.
Yeah.
I still
And
fuck up.
yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
still screw up, and I'm like, that wasn't my best work. I'm just gonna own it. So it wasn't my best work. I'm entitled
Yeah.
to that. Like,
I think what a great way to like to look at it. That you can just own it. It's like there it is, right? It's like fuck.
yeah,
Because we're not perfect and
no,
life has created ways in which we make choices that aren't always super aligned. But the key is like being able to be aware of it. I think I'm like sometimes I'll do something I'm like, yeah, like you said, like, oh man, okay. Next time.
yeah,
Get them next time.
yeah,
Um, at least I'm optimistic in that way sometimes. But
yeah.
yeah, so in that regard, what like so in all the different like say psychedelic medicines, plant medicines, and lab medicines, because some are made in the lab. And I guess I want to bring that forward. This is like a thought I'm having right now. Is that in my opinion, because you talk about LSD, and there's a lot of naturalists like plant medicines, but um, you know, I see that we're
That's
nature.
their choice.
Right, well, that's what I mean.
Yeah,
So, like, humans, we're nature, and so everything we touch is like we're little natural things doing natural things. We've just created like metal or objects that we can crush things together and form them, but we're still no different than like ants. We're just super advanced, and we can make new materials with it. So I think anything we do is part of the natural process and order. Um, so
it's I kind of see it as like, maybe you don't like MDMA, maybe you don't like mushrooms, maybe that doesn't resonate with you.
yeah,
Each one of these, each one of these medicines, like, essentially, I guess it has its own spirit to it.
right.
It has its own essence to it, and it has
Mhm.
its own how it's going to react inside of your body and what it's going to do for you in your brain. I think that kind of goes back to, why veterans are so good. I think a lot of them are really good for this medicine. Is yes, it's going to cause you to face your demons. Like, yes, of course it is. It's going to
Yeah.
suck. Like that's what's the point.
Mhm.
the point is, it is going to suck. But I tell people there's another side of trauma, and I'm like, this side's pretty awesome. Like, look at the way I live my life. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't have to be me. It's not, it's like it's not the expectations. Like you're on your own journey, but I'm like, yes, you have to go through this stuff because in my mind, it's like karmatic law. If you don't deal with it now, guess what you get to do in your next life? You get to
That's
deal
right.
with it then.
That's right.
So do
And
yourself a
the
favor.
sooner you get to deal with it, the sooner you get to that nirvana, right?
Yeah, you're right. And
Yeah.
so, I think a lot of people are, especially veterans, they get a little bit nervous about it, but I think that's why it takes it takes so many of us actually stepping forward and doing this and having these conversations and
Yeah.
people, other veterans just seeing people do it, because
That's right.
I mean, we all, we veterans, we tend to stay in touch, over the years and stuff. And I reach out to people all the time, and they're so interested. I posted my story on social media like a couple years ago, and I still get feedback from that, and
Yeah.
I still get people that are like, how's it going? I'm like, this is great, and some people are like, whenever I get out of the military, I want to do the same thing.
Right.
I'm like,
Yep.
get a hold
Exactly.
of me,
Giving them
call me.
permission. Yeah. We
Yeah.
can sort of give each other permission. Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
so I think that one, going back to we are the worst. We have seen the worst that humans have to offer. Two, we are very comfortable wearing the mask.
Yeah.
Because the military, yes, it's a job, but it's a persona.
It's a
It's not who
mask.
you are.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
It's
Yep.
not who you are. It's a part of who you are.
Right.
Yes, of course. Like there's a lot of things that I learned in the military that, yeah, that dictated who I become, who I
That's
am
right.
now.
And a lot of good tools that they teach you in there that they can
Right.
utilize. Yep.
But at the end of the day, it's not who I am. Yeah, I'm a
Right.
veteran. Like nobody can ever take that away from us.
Right.
Nobody can
Exactly.
ever take away the things that we did.
That's right.
And that's a double-edged sword because like yeah, I did some cool shit, but also did some pretty fucking terrible things.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And
That's right.
so like it's not to be it's not for you to judge yourself for anything. It's just like, hey, it is what it is.
Sure.
And so
Exactly.
I think with these medicines and stuff, I feel like having people like me and like you and I who can educate people and tell them like this is if you were to do this, because I've always told you like I enjoy compounding my compounds.
Yeah.
Like I enjoy doing like later
Right.
tonight, Becky and I were probably gonna do, some things. But I enjoy mixing the things because it's like alchemy, it's like
Yeah.
transmutation. Like I'm putting a recipe together and I see how I feel about it. And
That's
I'm like,
right.
oh, this is cool, I've
Hmm.
done some of my deepest 5-MeO and DMT while doing ketamine,
Okay. Wow.
mixing them. And we've had that conversation
Yep.
because,
Yep. That's interesting.
I
Yep.
can go super fucking deep and like I'm very calm about it. Whereas like,
Yeah.
like especially like you get really deep in Aya
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and everything gets really confusing and you're like, please just let's just take it down a notch. Just sim it down a little bit.
Yeah, Mama
But
Aya,
yeah, you
hold me,
don't
guide me.
you
Yep.
don't really like going through that experience is terrible. It's pretty bad. It can be.
Sure.
But at the other end of it, you're like, what the hell was that all about?
Yeah. So
I'm
let me
sure
ask
there's a
you. Let
I'm
me
sure
ask
there's a
you.
message there.
Oh,
I
I think totally. It's totally there.
I I think a lot of that feels like when I go through experiences like that, it's like I go to the place of what you would consider the gods or whatever.
Mhm.
And like you feel all this really amazing energy, and then there's always something that's a reminder. It's like, no, you're human, and you're going back to being a human.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
so it's like I've
Yeah.
had rushes of fear. I've had rushes of like just weird anxiety that just like I don't even know why. Like why was I focused on that? It didn't make any sense. But it
Sure.
was just or you gotta pee. That's one of them that happens to me a lot. Like I'm feeling all this energy, so I'm like, "Oh, shit, I gotta go pee. I gotta come out
Oh,
of this
I've been
meditation.
always do my best. I'm like, exactly. I've had that a few times. Once I was stuck. I was in that space, stuck on the couch, and I decided to just pee my pants. I was like, I can't. Well,
That's very infantry of you, bro.
I was sort of coma. I was sort of like I couldn't go anywhere. My body was almost paralyzed. I kept trying to get up, and I was in this like weird loop where I would try to get up, and I was like, I can't get up. I kept trying to get up, and I couldn't. This is
Yeah.
on mushrooms. So there's a point where I was just like, surrender. In my
Yeah.
mind, I'm just like telling myself, like, please just let go. So I just let go and I peed myself. Thankfully, 2 hours later, I came out of the experience. I had not peed myself. It was
Oh,
actually, it was an energetic, like energetic blockage for me. Like it was
so
just
a
an
purge
element.
maybe.
Well, it reminded me like it's an element of letting go, right? Like
Yeah.
acknowledging that, hey, I don't
Trust
have
the
control of
process.
this thing. Like I think I can control it, but there's a piece in there where it's like it can just take over at any moment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's funny, sort of funny way about chatting about that. So, yeah, thinking about or bringing forward like the different psychedelics that people are using, especially veterans, like mushrooms, ayahuasca, 5-MeO, MDMA, ketamine, and LSD. What
Yeah.
do you think? What do you think is the most beneficial to start with, and like how to, yeah? What are your thoughts around that?
I would say I would kind of go with what's accessible, and I would go with mushrooms,
Yeah.
because you can grow those. Most people, I mean, anybody can grow them. College kids grow them in freaking in their closet in the dorms and stuff like
Yeah.
that. You know
Yeah,
what I
we like
mean?
all
Like
in one
it's
grow bags now you can just get, right?
right. So they're pretty low hanging fruit. Now honestly, and I think we've talked about this. I think if I was to ever start anybody off
Hmm.
on something, it would 2CB hands down
Okay.
because it's so mellow.
Tell me
Like you
about it.
get such
Yeah.
a mellow vibe from it.
Mm,
There's nothing really intense about it, and that's kind of why I like mixing the ketamine with some of the other things because anything that kind of gives you that just that little bit of anxiety, like some of those medicines just kind of just give you a little bit of anxiety because they're kind of most of the time they're uppers because your brain is all stimulated and all this other stuff,
for
right?
sure.
But like 2CB's just always been so super mellow for me.
Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
but honestly, I think microdosing mushrooms is the most phenomenal place to start.
Okay.
And I mean, in January, it'll be 7 years that I've been doing that.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
and um, now again, each one of these, as you know, each one of these medicines has a specific thing,
That's right.
has a very specific purpose for it. And I think that's where talks like this and having people like us exist so that we can talk people through it because
Exactly.
there are people out there that go out and you can trust Reddit to an extent. I'm not gonna lie, I found out some good information on Reddit, but holy crap, there are some people on there that I'm pretty sure, well, first of all, I'm pretty sure about a third of them are bots. So
Yeah. Makes a
easily.
lot of sense these
So
days. Yeah.
especially on Reddit, I think a lot of them are bots. Um, but look for information and I get it. Some people are out there in like rural areas and they don't have a whole lot of people around and stuff like that. So yes, they probably don't have access to talk to anybody like us.
Sure. Sure.
Um, But I think that it doesn't take a lot of work either to find somebody, especially
Okay.
as this world grows and more veterans start doing these things and just taking charge of their life, honestly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
that's part of interesting because that's sort of part of the background of why we started this the Church of the Sacred Synthesis. Well, our original name, it's funny, I was going through the like all the company documents the other day, just like getting the organizational flow. And the first church we were Church of the Sacred Synthesis DBA Veteran Healing Church. And I'm like, this is like a 2020, like 2022, early 2022, maybe 2021. I can't remember the dates. But it was a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, remembering the mission I had of, because because I work with them. I work with retreat providers that provide 5 and 7 day retreats for veterans. And I know there's a few out there that are doing the same thing, like Beckley and Heroic Hearts and vets that have these flows of getting people into retreats. Yet I'm not sure what's going on as far as like education around how to approach these compounds, how to safely use them. And so I think it's so important because as veterans, we seem to be like most of us seem to be like MacGyver types, where we're just like, let me just put a bunch of shit together and see if I can get it to blow up, And
yeah,
so, with that being said, we know the value of training, of teaching, of doing repetition to get things working properly. But um,
yeah,
these substances, compounds, whatever people want to, label them. I call them medicines or sacraments.
Yeah.
They can be deleterious to one's experience if not used properly.
Yeah.
The medicines themselves aren't physiologically dangerous for the most part, outside of ketamine and MDMA, perhaps at like super high doses. But physiologically, they're safe. It's just like how we organize ourselves in our life during and after to keep things working well for us. Yeah, it brings us into our next sort of topic, which is like ceremony, retreat setup versus like what we call quote unquote recreational. In my view, recreational is a misnomer from some sort of body of like prohibition where they're trying to label it as like this fun party experience, which it should be. In my view, what is life supposed to be? And
Right.
from the view of like suits, say like government workers, or maybe perhaps some business people that just sit and do work and boss their family around. What is, no, the kids? There's kids partying with substances, but those people are experiencing a texture of life that is unavailable in most cases to everyone else because they're willing to go and expand and connect with all these people. And substances really help to sort of thin that membrane that's created from traumas and from things that happens in one's life, like PSA, PTSD, depression, anxiety, common ailments that veterans deal with in their mental health often prevents them from going out and integrating with groups of people or being in crowds, sometimes in stores. But psychedelics can help to, it's almost like motivational. It's like, wow, I want to be around people. Like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
alone.
Well, it brings down that hypervigilance just naturally.
Yeah. So,
You
yeah. So, what are your thoughts around the?
um I do think that I think that I don't think for the first time somebody does psychedelics, they probably shouldn't do it in a public place, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, I would think the most public I could think of that would be a good spot is like if you're out camping.
Yeah.
You're in a park, there's nature and stuff, and I think that doing something like that or just being on a big property at somebody else's house or something like that where there's just not a whole lot out there. Uh, a lot of people, I mean, they want to go to these festivals and stuff, and somebody's like, "Hey, I got this. You want to try it?" And they're like, "Yeah." And it's not like what when we were kids, like you get some stuff at a festival, like it could be there could be a lot of things in that, you know.
That's right.
And
Hmm.
so, or a rave or something. But I think your sources matter, obviously. Make
Oh
sure
yeah.
you get it from somebody you trust um and be educated about these medicines prior to doing it at any level, whether it's recreational or ceremonial or whatever, you know.
Hmm.
Like I said, I researched ayahuasca for years before I finally did it.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was mostly because of opportunity. And because back then you had to go down to Peru to do it. Nobody was doing it in the States.
Yeah. Is
And
that what
so,
you did? You went down to Peru?
no,
Okay.
no, I've never gone down to Peru. I've
Okay.
just do it over, somewhere here locally.
Okay. Rad.
Um,
Yeah.
so, but I think people go into it educated and as we learned, this is another thing that I definitely want to put out there is as we learned from our friend that passed away a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
do it with a battle buddy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Have a buddy, have
That's right.
somebody there that can just oversee what you're doing,
Yeah.
and accidents happen. They will happen and it's unfortunate. We lost a friend,
That's right.
but it's whether that's we really don't know if there was medicine involved, but
It was
he
there and
was
available. Yeah.
mixing some things that probably shouldn't be mixing to include cold plunging. So
Yeah. Very wild scenario,
yeah,
if you ask me. Holy
you
moly.
know, and
But
I'm gonna miss my friend,
yeah.
miss my
Same.
friend, but
Hmm.
I feel like there's a lesson in that, and I think it's don't do this stuff by yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really the invitation here, for all of us. And I mean, it's all humans, but speaking specifically to the veteran community who we've been, I don't want to say like trained, but we've gone through, that's our experience. It's like literally working with people around us. And perhaps that's what brings in the biggest risk is once we go and we have this support that's always been there that we've gone through our service with that we can rely on. And when that goes away, sometimes it creates um, a missing link or missing piece, which it can be dangerous. So yes, thank you for bringing that forward. Like having someone available, and obviously don't do these things in the water. Like these, as you said, like mixing uh, these experiences, especially psychedelics and extreme physiological changes like hot, cold, it can be dangerous. So wanting to just bring to awareness to that because yeah, we did lose a friend and yeah, it's definitely not an easy one. But
Yeah.
just a reminder that there's no guarantees. There's no guarantees in anything. So
You
um,
know, um, I, going back to the retreat thing,
yeah,
the retreat, I feel like the retreats they bring their own experience because
sure.
you not only have the medicine, you have all the energy that's been put into that medicine. You have the energy of the music, whatever music they're playing.
Yep.
I've sat with two different people, and the music is similar because it's Yawanawa, but things are still ceremonies just held
That's right.
differently, right?
Hmm.
And so, like, I mean, that'll be a preference, right? And as you know, from our hiking group, you experience these medicines with your friends in the woods. That's a different experience,
That's right. Oh
because
yeah.
you're out there in nature, you're moving,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
you know, you're moving, so and you're seeing a lot, so your brain's already it's got a lot of stimulus going on,
That's right.
and so, um,
You're
like
dropped into
that's it,
flow state with your friends. It's like, whew.
right?
Yeah,
And that's an experience.
that's right.
And then doing it recreationally, well, I don't know, going to a festival, going
Yep.
to a theme park, or just going out in public. Like sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have hypervigilance anymore.
Sure.
But also I'm not stupid. I know
Sure. I get that.
I know that the odds are low, but never zero. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Right.
And
Exactly. Exactly.
I want to do just enough to like, go into a place. I kind of make sure I kind of have situational awareness and I just leave it be,
That's right.
but I think that kind of stuff can cause a lot of anxiety in veterans,
Yep.
specifically if they do these things in public. And so recreational, I'd say with discretion with a lot of people until you kind of
Sure.
feel like you can handle that kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah,
Because
start at home with a battle buddy if it's available.
yeah,
At least minimally like with someone on call. We can be like,
yeah,
hey, I'm gonna take mushrooms.
yeah.
I'm gonna take
And
mushrooms. So if I call you, I may need support.
and for those that don't know, there's also Fireside Chat, which is a
There
little
is.
app that's for psychedelics, and you can call and talk to a counselor, and you can, their job is to sit there on the phone with you and kind of guide you through it. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
thank you for that. Thank you, Fireside,
yeah,
for making that. That's great. Great approach to being available and especially in this safety, right? It's like harm reduction. When you have those pieces, those elements sorted, there's less stress or tension around going deep or
yeah,
letting go, right? Because
yeah,
minimally there's a way to connect and have someone support you. Now, I just saw Fireside has now started a check-in service, so you can call and schedule them to call you or message you and check in with you during your experience.
nice.
So, yeah, I'm really enjoying the decentralized approach where it's like, we know you're going to do these at home. Like, let's give you all the tools that you can reach your highest and be safe doing it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's very rad to read. I think I read that this morning, um, that they were offering that service. So totally check in with them. That's great. Thank you for that. And then, um, yeah, thinking about psychedelics and how they can sort of help us transform and continue to be in a growth mindset and be in a mindset of self-acceptance, etc. Um, what I've noticed in in the ceremonies or in retreats that I work is that there's a lot of programming around them. Specifically with the Illuminating Collective, they've got a 21-week program, which is like a huge shrink wrap where there's 8 weeks of prep and then 12 weeks of integration support where there's like accountability. So it's really like sort of this like conglomeration of space where it's helping people expand and then giving them tools in which to step forward and move along their path to build new habits, right? It takes 30 to 60 days to really build good habits. So there is some of that. And then I know there's a lot of self-starters out in the world where they build their own programs and then follow them. And that's great. That's a great for the few that do it. But I think for the most part, most of the veterans that I know that have gone through these different transformations, I've had some friends kind of get lost where they're just like in the medicine, they work with medicines and then they're like in floaty space. Like, okay, they don't know what to do with themselves. Create all this
Yeah.
time, all this
Well,
space, and so
I've
filling it with
I,
something.
I've found that a lot of the vets, to include some of my friends, they will, and I told my buddy this all the time. I was like, you come here and you do this, you do the work, you put in all the work. It's all hugs and smiles and everything else. And I was like, then you go home and you step knee deep right back in that bullshit again.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and you just step knee deep. And I was like, it ain't but a day or two before you're neck deep in it again. I was like,
Yeah.
dude. I was like, what good is this for you? Because he honestly he needed to divorce his wife. He ended up divorcing her, you
Oh,
know.
good. Yeah, yeah.
But is it like seriously? I was like, it's like this is not helping for you. This
That's
is
right.
like, yes, it's great you're doing the medicine and you're having this, but I was like, you're going back right into the toxicity. And I was like, you've got this has got to stop one way or
Yeah,
another. This has got to end, you know.
sure. That's right.
And I mean, it's it's one of those things that's part of your integration too is hopefully you have some realizations that we had a girl that was in ceremony and she's like she said she wanted to work on things with her husband and I'm sure she did. I'm sure she tried and
Hmm.
it didn't end up working out, or I don't think it did, but it's just one of those things. It's like you've got to you've got to implement the lessons, and a lot of people they don't. To
That's
include
awesome.
myself, there are times that I'm not gonna lie. My first ayahuasca ceremony, and you know the story. It took me 2 years to understand what the hell that meant.
Yeah,
Took me 2 years, and by the way, I'd had I think four more ceremonies or three more ceremonies after that within that 2 year window.
yeah,
And I still it was weird because you know, learning those lessons like and understanding what all that meant, I was like, oh, okay, you know. And
yeah.
so
It can be big.
it's never it's never a straight line. It's not
No,
gonna be a
of course
straight line.
not, right?
It's
Of
gonna
course
be a
not.
spaghetti bowl of shit. Like your life is, because it's taken you, it took me 40 years to get there. And so it was like, yeah, I got to start somewhere. And you look 4 years later. Well, I mean, like I said, I've been doing microdosing for almost 7 years now.
Yeah,
But that's not to say that I don't like, I do meditation, I do yoga. We have the hiking group, I have a lot of
yeah.
self-care practices.
That's which is key, right?
Those are important.
In lieu of, it's interesting you bring that up. Thank you. In lieu of uh, the importance of having that integrative process where there's accountability, and with these retreats, there's accountability because you have all these other people and the way they organize it, it's like there's groups and there's chats. But yeah, in the decentralized veterans at home or with their battle buddies or with the help of fireside chat. Um, it's important to get involved with a group of people. If you don't have one, find one, right? Like
Or
so,
build it.
yeah, or build
Well, we
it,
did.
right?
Did we not
Exactly.
build?
No,
We
that's
built our
exactly
community.
what happened. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
So it was quite amazing. So we have this group that has been going since 2022. We've been hiking, and it's provided such a useful way for us to softly provide accountability to one another, and then wisdom and support I can remember so many times like showing up and like, we're gonna go deep on this topic. And it was all these psychedelic, these journeys that have come through, like sitting in medicine and then allowing what comes forward. And then like, oh man, I'm excited because I can remember a few times like just organizing my journeys around the hike. I'm like, okay, it's got to be a day or 2 days before the hike so I can, bring things forward to just to get some help and guidance around it, right? It's so nice to
Yeah.
share some things and have it reflected in a way where there's no judgment and really like open and acceptance. So yeah, and it seems like which is interesting, and I don't know if this is always the mushrooms or if it's just like the view. But I can always remember like taking a microdose on the hike. We would stop moving, and it's almost like my vision became like a treadmill. When you're like running on a treadmill and you get off and the world's still moving, like
Yeah.
it's almost like the energy's flowing. Like
Yeah.
this is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The
So
microdoses that we had.
yeah, sometimes a little
These are
more than
microdoses. Oh,
yeah.
these are microdoses.
Just yeah, just a
Yeah.
wee bit stronger.
Just a wee bit strong. Yeah.
Um,
And those are going to be some of the best memories. And, like the thing is we do live in a very, the kind of place where we can have this, right? And I
yep.
understand that not all vets can,
That's right.
but, and I understand that maybe there are some people out there that just don't have access to this stuff. And sometimes I'm kind of like, well, you either go where the medicine is, which a lot of people do. They'll travel long distances to go where the medicine is. And um there is also a solo journey. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
I
exactly.
had like I said, my friends and I were just a bunch of tripping bastards running around and doing, weird stuff. But, there's still a lot of time that I spent by myself and
Yeah.
just kind of had my own thoughts. Um,
Yeah, which is really really important in contrast to if your group ceremony is so important in its own right. But
yeah,
what I found is I'm able to go deeper and I'm able to do more exploration solo when there
yeah,
isn't anyone else around because it's
yeah,
almost as if what I've noticed in narrative with veterans in the retreats that I work and with other people is like if there's a group, they'll almost like pop up like, am I messing it up for everyone else?
yeah.
You're like, no, man, you're perfect.
No,
You're like,
not
okay,
even paying
cool. They go
attention
back
to
in.
you.
It's almost like such a common thread, and I think that's just because it's a service mindset. It's like I want to make sure that I'm supporting everyone else.
Yeah,
When we're alone, it's almost as if it's a reminder that we can put ourselves first that's so important, right? Like say in the airplane, like put your mask on before other people.
yeah,
So that's actually a topic that Cynthia and I have been discussing quite a bit, and it lends to the space that's available that most people are going to in the journey that most people are going to take because again, very few people can access these retreats. Um, I say as a whole collective that I know, maybe a couple few thousand a year. You can even say like 10,000 a year. That's the drop in the bucket. There's 200,000 service members leave service every year on average. So it's a drop in the bucket. And obviously, we have 17 million veterans that are running around the streets. Uh, I say that in the most endearing way possible. But yeah. So in that on that note, how do you think like the military mindset training helps to I will say like create a way to approach the medicines, a way to approach psychedelics is because I noticed like the veterans we're good at planning, we're good at creating
Mhm. That's
cordon
important.
safety. So yeah, do you have anything to share with that topic?
I would, like I said before, like getting your stuff from trusted sources, having a plan,
Yeah,
things of that nature. I do think that veterans, we're used to doing things that are uncomfortable, and
yeah.
this is pretty uncomfortable,
Oh
and
yeah,
it can be, but that's the point. It's, you, we all went to some form of basic training, except, some of the officers, but they still went through their own things. But it's it's uncomfortable. A lot of
That's
things
fair.
about being in the military are uncomfortable. So I think that a lot of people, a lot of people specifically in the veteran community, one or two things that keeps them from doing this kind of medicine. One, they're worried about addiction, and I will tell
Yep.
you right now, and there's a lot of studies that you don't necessarily get addicted to the medicine itself. You might get addicted to the experiences that you have, but honestly, the medicine itself, I don't know. You've probably done a couple like long benders of like multiple different medicines and or
Yep.
whatever,
Hmm.
and it will wear you freaking thin.
Oh yeah.
And
Eventually,
your
it's like,
body will
hey, no
literally,
more.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
your body's like, I don't want any more of this.
That's
Where
right.
versus like addiction, it's like, your body wants it still.
Yep.
With
Exactly. Yeah. Things are
psychedelics, your
very
body's
limited for
like,
me.
please stop.
Mm. Oh yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
working a long time. You're not numbing anything. You're making it, you're exacerbating it.
That's right.
But I think that a lot of people get wrapped around it like it's addiction, and a lot of people only have alcohol to go off of. That's the
Yeah.
only real altered state of consciousness that they've ever experienced,
That's
outside
right.
of maybe caffeine and stuff, but like very mild stuff. Right. And so they want to relate it to alcohol. And I often tell people, I was like, when you drink alcohol, it kind of reverts you back to your monkey mind, right? All you want to
Mhm.
do is eat, fight, fuck, do stupid stuff, be wild that doesn't really require a lot of thinking, right? It just kind
Yeah.
of dumbs you down to damn near just being above an animal.
Yep.
And so think about the other side of that. Like instead of you know, this convergence of mind, it's a divergence of mind. It's expansion, and you're thinking differently, and you're thinking more, and your parts of your brain are cross-talking that have never spoken before, and things of that nature. And so I think that if veterans kind of see it, approach it from that level and change that relationship in their mind with how they see this stuff, then they don't really need to worry about like an addiction or anything of that nature, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, I mean, some people are just terrified of what's in there, you
Sure.
know.
Oh, of course.
And
We're
don't
gonna.
get me wrong, I was terrified of what's in there,
Yeah.
you know. But I knew that if I was ever going to see the end of it, I needed to deal with it.
Sure.
We were taught, especially our generation, just to shove it down,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. Like I remember crossing the border in Iraq, and back then, they were using women and children to block convoys so they could ambush them. And our orders were just run them down and have nightmares about it later, because it's better than the alternative,
Sure.
because they're going to die anyway, because during the ambush, they'll probably just end up getting killed. But, that was the tactics back then. And it's just
Yeah.
like, these are your options. And you're only as good as your options.
Exactly. Yes, of
Sometimes
course.
your options suck.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Fortunately, I never had to run down any women and children, or so that was a plus. But it was one of those things that we were just told.
That's real life.
Yeah, we were just told that like this is what it is. So yes, I get it. There's a lot of shit that that happened that you just and sometimes when it does come up, you'll see it from a different perspective.
Sure.
And my whole perspective is like, you know what? I accepted responsibility that my decisions led me here. This is a volunteer military. This is a volunteer army.
Exactly.
My decisions led me here, and I needed to accept that like this was always a possibility. These were always possibilities. I mean, and so I wasn't naive to that, but seeing it from a different angle is like, yeah, my experience, my fucking life choices led me here, and I
Right.
need to accept it. Like this is just what it is,
Right.
and it doesn't make me a bad person. Did I do bad things? Yeah. Did I do bad things? Yeah. Everybody does bad things,
Yeah, exactly.
but
It sort of enables you to
is
see
it
it from another person's perspective. Like,
right?
oh, okay.
And now, I live in America where it's kind of fucked up here, but it's generally safe. People by and large, aren't trying to kill each other, but there
Yeah.
are some exceptions out
Yeah,
there,
absolutely. Yeah.
apparently.
As we're learning, yeah.
And so like it's generally safe here, and I don't really have to worry about those things happening here, at least not now.
That's
and
right.
and when if and when that ever happens, I'll have the mind and the focus to be able to react to that situation and
That's
not
right.
you know, like my hypervigilance goes from, of 10 to a 60 or to a
Oh yeah.
100,
Yeah, that's
and
very
it's
valid.
like, I don't, yeah, of course. Yeah. Life is going to change and things are going to get better and worse.
Yeah,
But
but if
it's
you're
like
hypervigilance, if you're running at such a higher PMs, it's like shifting into the mode to actually do something is not if there's just no bandwidth left. It's like, oh fuck.
yeah.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah, and that's the opportunity I think that these medicines invite in is like allowing us to live it every day as if everything's great and there's no problems, but then still being able to turn it on when needed, right? So it's because it's always there. And I think that's that's another thing that some of the veterans that I've worked with have thoughts around. Like, is it going to change me? Is it going to take away my ability to protect myself or defend myself? Like, it's going to make me a hippie or whatever.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't do that, but it does turn down
I'm still not a Democrat, so
yeah, it turns around. I think it just turns down that like prepper mind where I'm prepping
yeah.
for our conflict, which is really
Yeah.
inviting it in, right? You start
Yeah.
vibrating, and you start feeling into that energy. It starts finding you for some reason. That's just the nature of this existence. We vibe. The tribe shows up. It's like, oh, okay, I
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think the effects that psychedelics have on service members, like people who are actively serving? Because I know I've worked with a bunch that are still serving, and then also, or even are thinking about like people that are thinking about joining. Do you think this like stops or changes the perspective around like being a part of the military or continuing to serve if people are still serving?
I mean, it's weird because they've even been talking about testing for psilocybin now in the
I just read
military.
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, when I was the whole time I was in the military, we did what do they call it? AER, where we donated money to charities and stuff.
Hmm.
I donated to cannabis every time. This is like 2000
Yeah.
2000 to 2005, type of time frame.
Uh-huh.
But I knew the value of that stuff. Even back then, I knew the value of that stuff.
Yeah.
And so like, I always supported it. And so I think that honestly, while you're in uniform, you can do both. You can support it. You just can't do it.
You can't do it right.
You obviously can't really, I mean, it's not like you can own a cannabis company or anything of that nature,
Yeah.
but I mean, you can still support the community. You can still support a lot of things, right? And you can still have that mindset of like, I knew that I was gonna do this after I got out of the military.
Yeah.
I knew I was gonna do this
Yeah.
because I knew something was wrong and I knew how to fix it because
Yeah.
I knew I had tools in my toolkit that I knew that would work. And it attracted me right back to it.
Sure. Yeah. This reminds me of
So,
a story that, well, not a story, like an experience. I think it was like 2021. Um, I was recruiting in Houston, and I had made a video. This is when I was like really just feeling into the edge because I was still serving. I was feeling into the edge of like what's acceptable and what could get me into trouble. And
hmm
I'm like, who can see this? So I remember went on my social media and I blocked everyone that I knew in my unit, everyone that I could find. And I thought I did a good job. So I posted a video of adding THC uh, butter. I'm like making a bulletproof coffee using THC infused butter. And I was like, oh yeah, use this many milligrams in your coffee and provide yourself some relief if you're a veteran. And so I made the video. It was great. For me, it was really cathartic because I was like part of my healing is like I like to teach people things and like to bring things forward to expand their horizons of and perspectives. And so fast forward 3 days, my company commander calls me to the office. He's got the video pulled up. He's like, Sergeant Moore, what is this? I was like, it's CBD, sir. It's hemp. It's hemp. The hemp farm bill legalized hemp in 2018. And so he accepted that because he knew the journey. Him and I had like a really deep heart to heart. He knew the journey I was on and that I was exiting the military anyway. And I was in behavioral health every other week. I was driving to San Antonio to get services. So he knew where I was. So he's sort of like he's just like he's like you need to turn off your social media, basically. Um, but yeah, it's interesting because knowing that that's not something that is normal. So I would never
Hmm.
advocate for that because typically, if your company commander finds that, like he's got to follow the rules. It's his career or yours, you
Right.
know. So I got really lucky because he was actually leaving the army. He had turned in his resignation papers. His wife had secured this like massive job that allowed him to, I don't know, take a voluntary separation at that time. So, but yeah, I think saying that, fast forwarding to now, the way you just brought forward with the army starting to test for psilocybin, obviously there's somewhere that they believe that there's a potential risk because I know with back in the day to do a psilocybin drug test is very uncommon, almost doesn't happen unless it's a
No,
special request.
not unless like you'd have to be caught in the barracks with it.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
yeah, you would have to be caught in the barracks with it, and then they'd have to order it specifically.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not part of the testing. So I'm very interested and curious as to because as they're doing they're doing studies right now on active duty service members and veterans with psilocybin. They just passed legislation last year. So it's so interesting that that has now come forward. But perhaps as I think about it, it's like just like opiates, right? They're testing you for prescription opiates in your urine too. But those are things that are prescribed to veterans all the time. So, perhaps it's just part of the programming that they have, nothing more. I don't know.
Yeah,
Or they just know people are taking mushrooms and they're going to want to stop serving. They're like, fuck this. I'm out of here. I'm going to go take care of my family and
could
my
definitely see that doing that for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like a big psyop, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, which is
Uh,
great.
and I mean, I honestly, I think a lot of people get scared because when I got out of the military, I went on that big gambit of dealing with the VA, and even when I was on active duty, they had me on all kinds of stuff, all these psychotropic drugs. And there was one point, like I was a machinist when I was enlisted, did a lot of welding and stuff. There was one point where I was on so much shit that I was scared. I was afraid to operate machinery. I was afraid to drive my car.
Wow.
When I was in Germany, I'd wrecked my car a couple times,
Oh shit.
just because like I was just out of my mind. And, they just stacked one drug on another, on top of another.
Yep.
And, back then they didn't really call it PTSD. And they also, uh, didn't really have too much information on like bipolar disorder, at
Exactly.
that time either. And so I was diagnosed with all this shit. And, you start going back to the VA and they want to give you more stuff. And I'm just like, no.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
especially whenever I realized that, like, you know, I didn't have to take these pharmaceutical medicines because one, they were just poisoning me anyway. And I could take these natural medicines that, I've been told they're dangerous, but I know better because I have so much experience with them. And um, I know that uh, I know the value of them again. And so it was one of those things that logically this told me that the same system that took me overseas and had me do things for my country to do what exactly? Well, looking back, it's kind of like all I did was make a bunch of rich people richer. And so the same system that did all of this to me is going to tell me that I can't do what I need to heal myself. And I was like, logically, that doesn't compute. And I don't feel like I need your permission to do this
yeah. Makes
because I'm
sense.
not really asking for it. And so dealing with the VA, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things I love about the VA. Yesterday, I was getting acupuncture at the VA. A lot of people don't know they do that, but
Yeah.
they have started. Some places do ketamine treatment. Some places, have got other different alternative
Really
medicines and
improving,
things.
it sounds like. Yeah.
So yeah, they're getting a little, they're better. Well, I want to say they're better. It really depends on your location if
Sure.
they're any good. But the VA here is pretty good. But yeah, it's one of those things. It's like. going back to having that community of veterans who have stepped forward and taken this medicine, and we have these conversations and we teach other people and we pass this knowledge along. And I'm older than I look, but still I'm old enough to know that like sometimes you just need some people just to guide you through it.
That's right.
And and that's the biggest thing is having those people around that can help you through these situations. And like I would say when we do our hikes and stuff, I mean it's pretty much like trip sitting.
Yeah.
I've trip sat with people, and like people I've, I feel like trip sitting, people ask me what trip sitting is. I'm like, basically it's like going to hell with somebody and then, walking them back out.
Mm, that's right.
And because a lot of times that's what you're dealing with is their own personal fucking nightmare.
Yep.
And just kind of taking the reins and having control of the situation and guiding them through it. And I think that's extremely important, specifically in in the veteran community,
Yeah.
because we all need somebody that we can trust. Like everybody needs to have at least one person that they can
Sure.
trust.
That's
There's a
right.
lot of people that don't have that.
Yep.
And to me, that's a good start.
Yep.
You know,
Knowing that, yeah, bring
It's-
that awareness. Yep.
yeah. And I feel like that's a good start. Um,
Yeah.
but then I know our friend Josh that did just passed, his wife used to sit with him a lot of times while he would experiment with stuff, and she doesn't do that stuff. And he was just she was just somebody obviously that he trusts because he married her, but she would just sit with him
Yeah.
and just allow him to have his experience. And she don't even know what's going on because she's never done any of that stuff.
Right.
And but
The
having at
knowledge
least
there.
one person, they don't have to be a psychonaut, they
No,
just have to be somebody that you trust. Because again, like you said, it takes that anxiety off the plate.
that's right.
And
Yeah.
that's not something you want to kind of go in baseline, having these experiences.
Sure. And
And
then also they keep like their main job is to keep your body safe. When you're out there, somewhere out there in the great beyond, the body is like needs to be provided with oxygen and space. So having that person to help help the container be safe and is very, very important. So yeah, thank you for that, bringing that forward again. Um, yeah, I think that on that note, speaking about like safety and thinking about like veterans and how the importance of all these different elements in the process and how important each thing is, and I think the overarching subject is like harm reduction. For me, it's like you provide all the harm reduction planning in the beginning, then you can go and play, right? Have with whatever it is, whatever the medicine is, you're able to play in that way safely because you have oversight and you have backup,
Mhm.
essentially. So in that maybe it's a good time to sort of like round things out and
Mhm.
close out the conversation. Do you have anything you'd like to share that we haven't covered that's presently coming forward for you?
Um, honestly, if I could say a couple things just to the veteran community is like,
Yeah.
you know, where you're starting now, like guys like myself, Ben, and a lot of other people, we've all done it. We've all been down this road, and yes, again, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks, especially in the beginning. You do see all the beauty, and you start to have a realization of how beautiful things are in the world, and like there are some really good things. But going through the process of getting rid of all of that toxic stuff, and just getting all of that out of your body, out of your mind, out of your life. It's hard.
Oh yeah.
And it's meant to be hard. Again, you spent years accumulating this. It is not going to happen overnight. It is a lifelong journey. And you just continually you want ideally you'll just continuously get better. That doesn't always happen. Like we kind of relapse back into our own shit sometimes. It
Mhm.
just it just happens. Again, not my best work. I'll do better next time.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
it's I think a lot of it is just being, having some grace for yourself and just um having that acceptance that at the end of the day you are a human being.
Sure.
You're
Right.
you try not to screw it up, but you're entitled to do it every now and then. Like it's just gonna happen. I don't I'm not on point all the time. And
Yeah.
and it's it's hard to not be hard on ourselves because there's no bigger critic than our own freaking monkey mind sitting there
Hmm.
telling you you're demon, like you're not good enough and you're not
Yeah.
worthy of this and that. Um, and it's the things that make you feel less than that kind of keep you from progressing in this journey.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of it's making that commitment that and finding your why. Find out why. Why would I even want to do this? You know, even if it's for something as what most people think is trivial, is just living a decent life.
Hmm.
Even if you don't have anybody, like this is your experience of life.
Yeah.
This is you only get this,
Once.
you
Yeah.
know?
It's like you're gonna die anyway. Might as well pack as much stuff in there before that happens.
Yeah.
Why sign off early?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I I I I was talking to my buddy yesterday and I told him, I said, it's not that I don't have suicidal thoughts still.
Right.
It's not that I don't have depression. It's not that I don't get anxiety. But I also don't relate to those things like I used to, thinking that like I have depression or
Sure.
I have anxiety or I have PTSD. It's like I live with these things and yes, I struggle from them, but the frequency from where I started, where, like I could be depressed for months,
Right.
and I just wake up, throw on the mask, freaking get through the day, and come back and just crash and be depressed, and be depressed all day. But I had to be on. You have to be
Right.
on. You have to perform and again, put
Mm.
that mask on and just get through the
Right.
fucking day half the time. But in the background, I was depressed for months, and I was so good at wearing the mask that nobody ever knew that when these things were happening,
Sure.
right? And you got to think that that's running. A lot of that's running in the background, like whenever you're just trying to get through the day.
Yep.
And going through the medicine, it's decreasing the frequency of these things. It's having a plan in place to, oh, I'm feeling depressed. I've identified this, and you see it as a process.
Yep.
That's one of the things I asked. I asked the whenever my first ayahuasca ceremony, I asked the shaman. I said, "Do the indigenous people suffer from depression, anxiety, and stuff?" He said yes, but they relate to it differently. They say they're going through a process. They understand that they're
Hmm.
human beings and that
Yep.
these things happen. Like this is just a process that they need to get through so that they can come back and return back to being who they were,
That's right.
or who they are for during the normal times.
Right.
And sometimes these things just come up. They do. Maybe you had a bad dream and you're just depressed for the rest of the day. I don't know. But
Right. Yeah.
um it's one of those things is decreasing the frequency and recognizing it and figuring out how you push out of it so that what could be a day, 2 days of depression that you're just like, okay, maybe this my body's telling me that I just need to slow down. I need to calm down and just take some time and chill instead of just pushing it out for months on end.
Right. Yeah.
Like I haven't had, like I wouldn't say I've had more than like a handful of days of depression,
Mm.
consecutively in
Sure.
years, but do I still suffer? Do I still think that one day I may still want to take my life, even
Yeah.
though because I still have the thoughts.
Sure.
And am I so naive to say that I would never do that? No. You know, do I think I'm going to do it? No.
Exactly.
But odds are low, but
Yeah.
never zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I,
Sure.
and I think about that because they're again, you're only good as your options, and sometimes you don't see the other options, and I think that's where a lot of people get. They don't
That's
see
right.
the other options, and they're like, this is it. This is what I got to do. And
Sure. Exactly.
but
Associate relating to it.
Yeah, and from the outside looking in, we're like, well, you had plenty of options.
Yep. On
You
the
have
inside,
plenty
it
of
was one
options, but
choice.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's sometimes it just gets the best of us.
That's right. Yeah.
It just,
Exactly.
there's not a whole lot of explanation from it. I've known good guys, good people
Hmm.
to take their life, and it's like, well, did you see this company? It's like, well, yeah, but no. I mean. they seemed very happy. They seemed like everything was going on. Like there was nothing presenting itself that seemed like a problem that would end with this.
Sure. Yeah.
So yes, I am very confused that like why this happened, but also, we've all, especially vets, we've all dealt with it. And
Yep.
and where it came from to get that person in their mind to get to that point,
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel bad, but I'm not above thinking that I'm beyond that.
Sure, of
Mhm.
course, and yeah, same. I can relate to completely what you're saying. There's still times I'm like going through the exploration in my mind. I'm like, okay, well, let me try some DMT first,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's the invitation. Also, is like the teaching part. It's almost like giving people permission to put steps into the process before that ultimate choice, right? Because
Yeah,
if we
exactly.
if we teach and train steps in between there, where it's like, okay, if you're feeling this way, go down this list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if you get to 9, you're like, okay, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. Like
Yeah.
you've at least exhausted all the options, and then it's like, hello,
Yeah.
friend.
You know,
So
I tell people, especially my friends that are on active duty, I say, listen, I I get it. You're on active duty. You don't want to do this medicine, right? That's fine. I get that. But if you even feel like you're getting to that point to where you're gonna off yourself,
yeah,
like you need to call me. Like before you get to that point, you need to call me and we will figure something out.
yep,
We will
exactly,
get we'll at least try this,
yep.
and at least, and if it risks your career, it risks your career. I mean, what you're
Boy,
talking about killing yourself.
isn't that strange? Like I don't
Yeah.
want to risk my career, but I might just
Yeah, but
fucking do
logically, like I had a guy
it.
call me a couple of years ago, and he was like, he was real depressed. His wife left him, he lost his kids and everything, and he was just like, I'm thinking about killing myself, and he was just thanking me for like, because I was his PO, and he's like, you were a great leader and this and that. He's like, I always respect you. I was like, oh, cool, thank you. And like, how you doing? He tells me what's going on. He's like, I'm thinking about killing myself, and I said, well, I was like, well, what do you have right now nearby? And he was telling me, I got an old rucksack. I got some clothes. He's like, everything else is gone. I said, well, go for a walk.
Yeah.
He was like, what do you mean? I said, Grab the shit that's sitting there. And I said, go for a walk. I said, and he walked from Columbus, Georgia, all the way to, I think, Mississippi or something,
Wow.
for like days. And he calls me months later and he's like, oh, okay, I see what this, because he was like, I can't just abandon my kids like that. And I was like, dude, you're talking about killing yourself.
Exactly.
You're abandoning, that is abandoning your kids.
Yep.
I was like, let's think rationally here, And I was like, just go for a walk, dude. I was like, see how
Yep.
you feel.
Hmm.
I said, just
Hmm.
keep walking and can't fucking walk anymore.
Yep.
And I said, you'll figure it out. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. Wow. So that's just what a highlight to bring this to a close. Like you have friends. If you don't have friends, you have people that you served with. You may hate them. They may hate you, but if you call them and you're like, "Hey, I need help," they're gonna fucking help you. I can almost guarantee it. Because that's just how it is. It's like sometimes there's a brother that shows up, you're like, "Man, this guy." But when he's like hurting, you're like, "Okay, I'll give you some food, I'll give you shelter, I'll give you guidance." So, yeah, wow. Yeah, so it's incredible. So thanks so much, bro, for
Yeah, dude.
chatting with me today and bringing so much wisdom forward to help our brothers and sisters um, to to work with these and approach these medicines safely and not be not I would say not have resistance, not have fear around um, the medicines, but also what the medicines bring forward, right? Which is really the inner self, the truth. So I want to just continue to emphasize safety, approach this with reverence. Don't take these and drive. That would be ideal. There's all the safety stuff that people should know to begin with. And then to optimize the experiences, journaling, being in community, sharing with people, it gives you journaling especially gives you the opportunity to actually keep score of where you've gone. So many of us don't know like how much we've gone through to get to where we are. And so we abandon that thought and we're just like, oh man, there's all these problems. But if you can accumulate and inventory the path, the things you've overcome, all these experiences, like wow, you can see that there's so much work that's already been done, so much growth that's already happened. So just wanted to bring that forward too, like journaling and community is very really important. So With that being said, thank you everyone for joining. There's an integration call next week on Tuesday. And then just stay tuned for more information. We'll put it in the signature and it'll come to your email. So thanks, everyone. Love you guys. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thanks, dude.
All right. I'm gonna